patience is a virtue. You know what I mean? We all know patience is a virtue. However, if you're sitting there waiting for your success, for your opportunity, if you're sitting there waiting for the miracle, if you're sitting there waiting to be healed, if you're sitting there waiting for your happiness, then you're going to be waiting. You know, the greatest sin that was ever committed in the world, the greatest one was we debased ourselves from the great God of the universe, the great God Almighty. And whatever, tongue that you speaking from, right? Whatever linguistics you are using to refer and denote the Holy One, the Great One, right? If you sit in there, it's that that was the greatest sin. We by our Lord was hidden in the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It states that man debased himself. When we say man, we're talking about humanity, all of us, the spirit beings, our ancient ancestors. In the beginning, man debased, he separated himself. We separated ourselves from our super consciousness of the divine source within us, of our inherited right to be, right? To go to summons the energy of the earth, the air, the fire, the water, call upon the spirits of the multiverse, of the universe, whatever your frequency is, whatever frequency that you've tapped into. I'm gonna tap in with you. You understand me? We're gonna go through all of the senses, the seven chakras, the seven energy centers. But if you, that's probably the key term, frequency, energy, right? Because that's what's required in order for, to do anything, to move, requires energy. So we got the greatest energy in all of the multiverse. We got the creator, the divine source within us. So if you sitting there waiting, if you sitting, that's a byproduct of the sin. That's a byproduct of the of what we refer to as the fall of man. We sitting here waiting. Now that we, not the collective, but the question is, or the point, or the message is, if you are sitting there waiting, you're gonna be waiting. You're gonna be waiting because it don't. The system does not operate off of stagnation. The system operates off of thought. That's the contemplation of thought, right? The thought through word, and then the action. Whether you're taking those thoughts and words, putting thoughts into words into on paper, and then you acting from that. But if you sitting there waiting, unfortunately, you're gonna be waiting. If you sitting there waiting for your opportunity. Nah, you got to go out there. I gave a quote a month or so back, or weeks or so back, maybe 2 months. It was on one of my promo videos. And I can't exactly entirely remember what was the actual topic, but the quote was the best way to predict the future is to create it. The best way to create the future is to create it. And when I was doing my observation slash studying, I kept seeing this common theme that says, "Ye are all gods. Is it not written in your law? Ye are gods. Is it not written? Ye are God's children of the Most High. Is it not written in your law? Man and Allah is one. Allah is love. The God of love is love, right? So the nearest place you can meet Allah is in the heart. It is written in our scripture, and not now, excuse me, not the scripture. Uh, it's not referred to as the scripture. It's referred to as the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. And this is out of the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Circle 7. And this was divinely prepared by a noble prophet Jur Ali by the guidings of his father God Allah to redeem man from his sinful ways and bring him back to the highest plane of spirit life with his father God Allah. So it is written, that the nearest place you can meet Allah is in the heart. Allah and man is one, the divine source. So whatever tongue you're using, if you speak in English, right, and you want to say, you got God, or you speak in Hebrew and you want to say Jehovah or Jehovah, however they, in whatever tongue, you referring to the one, the source, the divine source. And the propaganda, if you want to call it propaganda, because why would why would the divine source be anywhere other than within? All right, so that what makes us heaven. We are heaven. This is uh, okay. Good job. And that's my son. We got little Prince. A matter of fact, let me give him honors. Prince Siraj Hassan Miles Hill. Let me give him some honors. He's on the Noble Five Divine Principles itself. Um, at home school slash fruit time. He on that fruit fast. But going back to where I was at, and and we sitting here, a lot of people, and I'm seeing because I just got done reading some articles, and I was already, I got to do a better job just to to take a note to the audience, do a better job at promoting the podcast, right? I see where I can improve some areas at getting you guys here on time for the session, by just putting out the schedule and doing a lot of promo to the build up. And we're gonna get we're actually putting the plan together to execute that plan to produce that to increase the quality of and the value of what we're providing here on the podcast, in this digital grind, as they would say. um but I mean, excuse me, however, I'm reading this article and it was so inspirational, right? It was so encouraging. It was talking about the problem, looking at the problem not just at home, right? Meaning the country, but also looking at how the issue, which is causing this problem, is causing the problem historically everywhere. And it was talking about all the other options on the floor, you know, and they had how they chose to put their brains together and take action from a spiritual, mental, physical, political, financial, economic, etc. capacity, right? To fix their problems. You can run where you run into. This issue is around the world. It's causing this kind. Yeah, countries. Some countries are, doing better than others. Some are not. We just seen for a fact that France uh, fell. The nation of France fell. Its government fell apart. It filed a no vote of confidence or something like that. It's all over the world. It's beyond just all over the world. It's in fact, let me tap in here and see uh where do we stand. So but if we sitting here waiting, smart, say smart, intelligent people around the world that decided to face the issue which is causing the problem, they're starting to pick up momentum, which is an inevitable result of their decisive decision making ability based on and not allowing the pressure of the problem generated from the issue overwhelm them and put them in a lame duck capacity where they're actually waiting for an administration outside of themselves to lead them to glory, to lead them to victory, to lead them to peace, to lead them to prosperity. And I mean, it's a no negativity moment. And so I just don't think I don't suggest, you know, to put all your eggs in one basket on that thought. There's nobody's coming to sell you based on a pattern of behavior. If somebody is coming, they usually coming to enslave you and take advantage of you, and take advantage of the weak. And so if you're sitting there waiting, what we want to say is stop waiting. Nobody's coming. You're going to have to put the work in spiritually, mentally, physically. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to link with like minded people uh, that shares your values and you share that you have a common value and you want to you're not want it you're going you that's the secret to your ability to get to the next level, your level that you see you should be at, right? And so and wherever that level is at, I suggest you push about seven times to 7 times higher than that level that you think you should be at, right? I think you should go up 7 times. That's what I suggest because I know from the pattern of the marketing, I can see the intent of it. And so when I say the marketing, I'm talking about when we watching any screen, TV screen, phone screen, you got the speaker screen. So you listen. Listen is a form of seeing. And again, you're being manipulated by the marketing. Everybody is being pushed and it can be it's everywhere really. And it's a science of why it's that way, but my point is that the marketing of propaganda, anti self-esteem building material, anti-family material, anti you can do it material, anti-victimization material where yes you've been damaged and attacked. However, you do not have to decide to stay there. You do not have to be overwhelmed by that because now you know, and now you have the information to improve your quality of life. You can administrate your independent, individual, uh, um, self-sustaining program, right? You don't have to let the so in biblical talk, you don't gotta let the devil win, right? We don't in biblical terms, we don't have to allow the devil to play his game, right? To play his or her game. These devils, we got to put an S on him and be overwhelmed because that's what the issue is. Now we allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed, or you allow yourself to be overwhelmed, and now you're sitting there waiting for the cure, for the answer, for the solution, for your success, for the opportunity, for the money, for the bag, for the love, etc. No, you already naturally, organically, divinely, all of those qualities are already, you are already made up of those qualities. The access to information about yourself, or should I say the attention, the individual's attention, the collective attention, the group's attention to the most important information, outformation in the universe. Where our attention is not there. So it causes for us to have adopted strange and all these inflammatory ways, practices, and etc. And unfortunately, it puts us in a position again to where we're literally waiting for our salvation. And then we play into this matrix of Batman, Superman, Robin, Catwoman. Superwoman, the Amazon, Black Panther, some Marvel comic character is going to come out of a science lab, experimental science, how you say it, a science experiment. A lot of these guys are science experiments, and then you look at, but that's not the point. The point is that somebody's gonna come out of a Marvel movie, Avengers, and save us, which is great for entertainment, right? I like Avengers. You know what I'm saying? I like the I like the Superman. I like Black Panther. I like all of that stuff. I'm not knocking that. I'm saying that that's not the reality, though. This is not the reality. If I watch it, I'm watching it from a capacity that they're actually talking about me. They're actually saying I have this ability in me that I'm unaware of, right? And that's like the greatest discovery because like, well, when you take what comes to mind as Black Panther, you take that, you say, well, they found this herb in the earth, right? This herb, and it was impacted by a comet. And it's like once you start to break down the properties and components of what it's made up of, and then you compare it to your body, you're like, well, there's a compatibility. Like this makes me stronger, faster. It what it does is improve and enhances and increases all of your senses, including your higher senses. And you're like, wow, you become what like superhuman, i.e., Black Panther. And there's no different than the impact and effect of the sunlight onto the human, onto my body. It's like, oh well, oh my God, I can go run 14 miles. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I just feel really good when I'm out there in the sun, bathing in the sun. And scientifically, it enhances all of the body's features. It's a super enhancement. And so my point is, if I'm watching superhero movie, action movie, as we call them, it's like because I'm in a mentality of taking action. I'm going to use this action movie, and it's going to stimulate my mind, which is energy. Because I mean, I'm gonna have some energy, be creative, innovative from what I'm watching, and I'm going to mobilize it into and me taking a superhero action to save myself, to save my family, to save our economy. When I say save, I'm referring to like building, enhancing, improving, right? And those qualities, and just making sure that we have an increased economic security. What is the superhero action that I can take to render the results that I just identified, which ultimately is sustainability and increasing our wealth, right? And so when I'm watching these movies, I'm getting stimulated economically and innovatively. And I'm saying, okay, all right, oh, we're about to let's and I'm researching and most of the time we're doing a lot of research because the impulse that's created is not to go out and jump out here just to be doing something. No, I ain't saying that. I'm saying now I'm about to jump in there, do the research, and see how profitable this thought or yeah the thought is that was stimulated from in the impulse about. So I use the impulse energy to do the research, and that research is going to tell me from the numbers that's produced and generated from the research if I should even it's going to regulate the impulse. It's going to save you millions, billions, trillions of dollars because you're going to take that impulse. You're going to be like, well, instead of me just jumping out here going to do this experiment, I'm going to save myself some time by actually doing the research and actually putting together the numbers based on the research, the factors of what I'm looking to do in thought, in theory, as they would say, right? And if the research don't align with the theory, then you're gonna shut that whole. The impulse does not regulate your life. Instead, the research does. The research, the factors. That's all we're talking about. The factors. So again, if I'm sitting here waiting though, then I never even get to the research. I never get to the results from the determination. Was this theory in fact um, no longer a theory? Is this something that We actually can go out and campaign and push and manifest this, or was this just a great thought to have, right? So, but if I'm in a waiting capacity, I never even activate the initial thought. I never act on it. And right, and so time goes past, a year, etc., and years plural, and somebody else got the thought, and they didn't win and made billions of dollars. I seen that happen too. So it's like I'm reading this article, and I'm inspired by the brother in Ghana, um, and I'm gonna share that article with you. But it was a article that I know it was sculpted in pretty much politics. However, it was motivational. It was inspirational. Uh, and I kind of seen other examples from stories from like Elon Musk. I just seen a story weeks ago. It was talking about Donald Trump, talking about how Donald Trump lost 900 million, and talking about how Elon was on his last little couple M's, maybe even less then, and how he had to go to his family and call a family meeting and make a tap into what his people had going on, and take that and use that and build that, and now that's a part of the portfolio, made a part of the portfolio, which boosted the portfolio, and now Cuz back, richest man, wealthiest man in allegedly in the world. So we got to look at that, right? Like these are stories, that masterpiece stories. You know, I was listening to Dan Pena, and he was talking about how he didn't produce the most multimillionaires in the world, like the mentors and stuff like that. So in that particular industry, he's claiming that he produced the most multimillion millionaires in the world, and in fact that they're as young as 15, 14 years old, which goes back to prove that my theory was correct when it comes to how I raise my sons, especially in the mental capacity that I operate in today. Not that my sons and my daughters and my wife, if you associated me in any kind of way, shape, or form, you pretty much gonna get what I'm into, right? I've always been a personal experience person, even when I went to college in life. Like that's the only thing I really knew, you know, because I'm into the principles of truth. So before I go into a fairy tale and creating a scenario, a frivolous one, let me give you this personal experience to give you to help guide us through a situation, and how did I get from the issue to create the problem to the solution, right? And so I use personal experiences in that illustration of me being able to communicate like experiences, those experience that somebody else experienced, right? But my point is the ability that we have when when we combine, our beliefs, what we believe, to the faith and to the fruition, man. But if we've been trained and constantly, assaulted with waiting, or the answer lies in somewhere else other than yourself, because even when I had to face, as the brother was talking about in the article, hardships, adversities, and stuff like that, that come from taking a risk, right? You're in an entrepreneur field, you're an investor field, you understand what it means to take a risk. One day, my boy over at the Oakland County Republican Party said, as far as the new chairman, he said, one day he said, "Man, I was eating steaks, and next day I'm eating peanut butter and jelly sandwich." And so that's some of the pattern that you would see in the entrepreneurship sphere. Um, that risk. There's a high reward, and also there's a no reward. It might even put you in a negative, depending on how great of a risk you took. But the reality of it is, you know, that's like literally one of the greatest things that you can do to harm yourself. Sitting there in a state of, procrastinality, sitting there in a state of victimality, you know, sitting there in a state of, you know, thinking that it's something about you, right, that can't be fixed. When it's just not true. Everybody has that ability to redeem, restore, improve, regenerate, rejuvenate, to do over again, especially if you woke up today breathing, seeing, all of your senses are intact, your health is intact, maybe not so great, but you're here to take a look at it and do something about your particular situation, right? Individually, family wise, etc. Your ability to improve is a birthright, right? You don't have to sit there and say, man, there's something wrong with me, and like that's the end of the world. No, it is something wrong with you, right? It absolutely is something wrong with you, but you got the ability. You know what? The first step to healing, as they tell us in psychology, right? We was in psychology class, or have you ever been to, a therapist, psychoanalyst, or whatever, and they sitting there dealing with you in your mind with the intent to improve that space, that's the first step in the process. It's a rule. You got to be able to face the issue, the adversity, the confrontation. You got to have that confrontation. Then, you got to say, you know what? You got to get out of victimization. You got to move. You got to gradually, I ain't say rush. You have to gradually remove yourself from out of that thought. You're like, well, that thought is becoming has a dominant presence in my mind space, which is a spiritual space. This is the ether space, right? And you can't not allow this thought generated out of the shadow streams of the mind, as they say. This comes from the shadow stream. It doesn't even exist, not even a real thought. But you let this frivolous thought, which probably comes from some bad negative environment, some negative music, some negative people, some negative food, just a bunch of accumulated negatives. And this is where the thought is having a presence at, having its foundation rooted in that. And then this thing is operating at a high level. This has now become the the administrator of the mind space. This thought, we gotta dissolve it, bankrupt it, eliminate it, revoke it, retract it, send it back to, return to sender, right? We can't allow the traumas and all of this, and you gotta take action. That's why I say you can't sit there and be waiting to take action, because the first action you gotta take is you gotta, when you are allowed to rise in what we call the morning, what is referred to over in English in the United States communication socially. You say in the morning, I got up this morning. So when you rose, right, and when you rise, first thing the consciousness got to come to the forefront with is gratitude. Gratitude to the universal authorities. You understand me? The spirit world, the guardian angels, the um, that protection that was afforded to you. First thing we got, and what are you talking about? Man, we got to get into the state of gratitude. That's what we're talking about. Like, that's the first acknowledgement of your activity. That thought got to be, man, gratitude to the Elohim Allah El, or gratitude to the Most High. All praises to Allah, or all praises, however, whatever tongue that you speak. We saying that it's a scientifically proven that what comes from your tongue has a power. What comes from your tongue must come from the thought first. So this is in that mind heart space, and when you are acknowledging the the blessings or the blessings, right? Whatever tongue you want to use, we can use all the tongues. We want to use all the tongues today. Universal tongue, love, but um, that sets the right frequency. That connects you to the right frequency. And what you sending out into the atmosphere, what you sending out into the universe, the multiverse, etc., is what comes back in that magnetic field. You're going to bring that back to you. So, and therefore, you're going to create the reality that you experience. So, if I'm acknowledging the greatness, the divinity that's in operation, and I'm saying, man, gratitude, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate this meal, this food, this 100,000, this 100 million. I appreciated the 100 million like I appreciated the $100, the 100 pennies. I appreciated the 100 pennies before I decided before I even got to the 100 pennies. I appreciated myself. I appreciated my ancient ancestors for watching over me and protecting me, guiding me. I appreciated the spirit of Mother Earth feeding me, the spirit of the air for allowing me to breathe. I can experience this. I can the life force of the planet. I appreciate. You know what I'm saying? Like the, the gratitude. The gratitude is just a simple formula of salvation. It's not fancy. It's not. You got to go do this massive research, man. You put out positivity for nature, for the universe, for the rules, the laws that guide the universe, the multiverse, that rules the stars, the sun and the moon. When you recognize that, then you recognizing, yourself. It's like who honors, you honor each other, you honoring the, you know what I'm saying? It's like you start to gain a greater appreciation and insight for the operations of the whole thing. You say, well, man, who or what set this in place? It's amazing, right? It takes you beyond the propaganda. And you start gradually moving into that what they refer to in a biblical sense as a Christ degree, right? Or in a another spiritual sense, they're talking about the crown chakra. And when you're doing it in more science, they teach you about the crown chakra, the they teach you about the third eye, and we also teach you about the heart chakra, because near this place you can meet Allah's in the heart. And okay, that's the heart chakra. That's an energy field. That's an energy center. And when you combine those three that I just talked about, when you understand the root chakra, when you understand, and you're talking about now the spiritual, constitutional, the constitution of the human being, the spirit man, and we start observing and analyzing these magnificent features, and you're like, man, I'm sitting here waiting. No, yeah, you were. You don't have to. The best way to predict the future is to create it. It's going to require energy to do that. So you got to get up and moving. You have to move. You got to get up and move. Go jog. Go do your yoga. Go meditate. Yeah, that's what the first thing you're gonna do. You're gonna first thing we should be doing, which is meditating, moving in mind. Then you go and do the other things, exercise, etc., etc. Man, first of all, you can't even explain when that adrenaline get to pumping, that blood get to pumping, that heart get to pumping, or vibrating at a faster rate. You're gonna be like, oh my, right? Oh my God, I feel good. Now that's the right kind of energy. Now that's the right kind of energy. And so, what am I looking at here? I'm on X, and so we're gonna move on to the next sphere of thinking or thoughts that I want to share. And I've been kind of contemplating on this for a couple days, but because we want to stay in alignment with the events that's happening around the world and how they impact us. And one thing we can do is be able to share in different information so we can understand what's happening um, and kind of continue to move into the right direction of our super consciousness, because the insufficiencies of knowledge is real. And some of the ways we can reduce that insufficiency is by actually having access to information for us to deliberate around and do more than understand, the impact. But, you know, how do we, again, improve our conditions, right? And express the issues, right, that, as your family or as an individual or as a collective community are facing. And a lot of times, you want to go somewhere where you can find out different information than what the mainstream media is talking about. Why? Because they all sing the same song, and it's all funded and scripted, what I'm saying, by the same entity. So, knowing that that's the creation of what is referred to as a monopoly. They have a monopoly on information, and the fact that the information, industry has been commercialized, so it's for profit. It's not for empowerment of of the public or the audience that they're marketing to. And this is a massive thing. Like, this is not something that's um, is not more known today in the general public. And I think it's more than just known, but it's more so like people are taking action to counter the propaganda um, attack on the global public. So whether you're in Afghanistan or you in Detroit, you want to be able you are being um, attacked. It's what they call info wars. So, and this is really a psychological attack, right? They're attacking your psyche by imparting through the television. So now it's a weapon, and through the phone or whatever screen that your brain is locked into. Um, this tool now is going to become a device of war, and it goes in and it has a divisive agenda, and that's what I'm saying, and that's what it is, and there's no way around that. So if you're not connected to X has been a source of citizen journalism. You know, you got all these alternatives that have popped up, True Social and Telegram. And why? Because there's been a program and project administered both publicly and privately, both government and private corporations and organizations, including but not limited to what they refer to as NGOs or nonprofit organizations, that are in collusion with censoring Americans and distorting truth and pushing out misinformation, disinformation. And there's been a covert mission, um, as we've seen with the FBI files, the Twitter files. We've been disclosed through congressional hearings, testimonies, and reports, and court and court. The courts aired out um, the crimes and unconstitutional conduct committed by the Biden administration or the Biden regime and big tech. And so now you got to go and kind of go get your information from, not kind of, but the city. That's why I mentioned citizen journalism and people that's actually reporting the information as it is and not putting the spin on it or modifying the information. So I said all that to say this. Oh, I think my situation went off here, but we back on. So we looked at this particular statement and article on X, I was kind of looking at it, and it talks about federal authority overrules local immigration policies. Ninth Circuit panel affirms December 5th, 2024. This is an excerpt. A three-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court. Hold on, let me go to that page. Oh, and here's the article. Here's what it is. Here's the article right here. And so what they was obviously talking about. So at the Ninth Circuit Court, the case originated from an executive order issued in 2019 by King County Executive DOW Constantine. Interesting religious, biblical. They got all kind of stuff going on, right? They got Constantine in here, but let me stay focused. Which prohibited operators at King County International Airport near Seattle from assisting U.S. immigration and customs enforcement ICE in deportation related charter flights. Constantine directive effectively halted ICE's ability to deport individuals through the facility, significantly impacting federal operations, creating challenges in immigration enforcement within the Seattle area. So the Trump administration challenges those local orders. The Trump administration filed a lawsuit arguing, now Matthew's not even in office yet, but they filed a lawsuit arguing that the executive order violated the Supremacy Clause and a World War II era instrument of transfer agreement that grants the federal government use of King County International Airport. A district court sided with the federal government, asserting that Constantine's action obstructed federal operations and were therefore unconstitutional. Kings County appealed that ruling to the Ninth Circuit Court, but the appellate court upheld the lower court's decision, affirming that Constantine order violated federal law. Judges Daniel Bress, Michael Hawkins, and Richard Clinton ruled that the federal government has sustained significant injuries from the executive order, including increased operational costs and logistical challenges for ICE. Legal findings in their 29-page decision, the judge identified two specific injuries to the federal government: the inability to conduct charter flights and significantly raise ICE's costs and imminent risk of future interference due to the executive order. So it's two things: the inability to conduct charter flights, which severely raise the ICE cost, and two, an imminent risk of future interference due to the executive order. The courts determined that the order violated the intergovernmental immunity doctrine by improperly regulating the federal government's transportation of non-citizens and discriminating ICE, discriminating against ICE contractors. The ruling emphasized that no other contractors at the airfield face similar restrictions, highlighting the discriminatory nature of the directive. Sanctuary County policies of federal supremacy. Constantine's executive order was part of the Kings County broader sanctuary policies aimed at promoting inclusivity and reducing barriers to services for all residents. However, the Ninth Circuit Court found that these policies ideologically motivated and inconsistent with the federal government's legal obligations to enforce immigration laws. The court dismissed Kings County argument that deportation raised human rights concerns, asserting that local ideological positions cannot obstruct federal operations. The ruling emphasizing that federal authority under the Constitution's Supremacy Clause prevails in immigration matters. They didn't understand that. Broader implication decision reinforces the primacy of federal immigration policies over local sanctuary ordinance, setting a significant precedent for ongoing disputes between federal authorities and local jurisdiction resisting immigration enforcement. ICE has yet to comment on the ruling, but the case underscores the legal and operational challenges posed by sanctuary policies across the country. As debates over immigration enforcement continues, decisions may serve as a critical reference point for similar battles. So, what happened, as you just heard, is that the the bull crap got to come to an end. In short, so all of that, there's a precedent on the floor, Ninth Circuit Court, and they could pretend like it. They can ignore it if they want to, But this is when people start going to jail because you cannot impede on the administration's constitutional obligation to enforce immigration laws, to enforce the law. That's the sacred constitutional obligation of the Article Two, the executive branch. And so um, the legislative branch got a job to produce the law, to enact law in compliance of the Constitution, and the executive branch have a obligation has an obligation to uh, enforce the law, um, and defend the Constitution, support and defend the Constitution by enforcement of laws that are constitutional. The judicial branch has an obligation to uphold the law and defend and support the Constitution. So each branch of government has an obligation. The first branch, the Congress, has a job to do. They got to enact the law. They got to deal with the purse, the appropriations of the purse. They got to protect the purse, etc. The executive branch got to enforce the law, support, defend the Constitution. The judicial branch got to uphold the law, enforce, and defend the Constitution. That's it. So, um, and that applies. That's uniform. That's state, county, city. Period. All the way down. All of the institutions of the state, all of the institutions, governmental, representative governmental institutions of the state, the county, the city, with the township, borough, village. All of the institutions are under the supremacy clause, are subject to the supremacy clause. And it's written in their laws, it's written in the state constitution. And then all of these entities created from the state, from the legislature of the state, is subject thereto. And it says it in the Constitution, Article, I think it's Article 11. And so they have an obligation to uphold and defend the federal Constitution. And it's just a reality. It's written. It is written. And so what they've done is, basically they have been violating the constitutional law, and under the guise of sanctuary cities, right? They said no, that doesn't apply, and you can't break the law and then say, uh, you know what I'm saying, that you know whatever they is trying to use, or they're trying to say it's going to cause humanitarian, it's going to raise humanitarian concerns to send somebody home. So understand what type of precedent we set. I'm an owner of a building. Let's just say I own an apartment building. And so, somebody can come in, set up shop, right? That's breaching the border, right? Like, well, I got a right to own property. I got a right too. And so the federal government has a right, an obligatory, an obligation. They got a right to enforce immigration laws. And there's a reason for immigration laws. Like, it ain't just because you know what I'm saying? No, wait a minute. Everybody can't just come in my crib and just set up shop, but I'm supposed to be obligated, you know. No, what, hey man, where's the order? It's just without having to go into trying to break it down or hurting one side to justify another side. Here's the bottom line. Where is order? Order is a part. Okay, order is a part and partial of this reality. You got to have order, and that's out of order, and that's what the courts, the third branch of government, the judicial branch, they have a job to do, an obligation to uphold the law and support and defend the Constitution. And in this particular ruling, as it is reported, That's what they have successfully done. They saying, well, wait a minute, federal government got a job to do. The federal government has to enforce immigration laws. And you have what they refer to as a border crisis. And if you listen to, I guess, the Republicans, if you want to call that, they're saying that the law has been broken, the immigration laws has been violated. They keep talking about what about this, that, and this, like all the sidebars. But the reality is the enacted legislation with respect to immigration was enacted pursuant to the constitutional law. So now you want us under oath and affirmation to violate the oath, the Constitution? That's a crime. So you have to enact laws that support, a constitutional process approach, because that's the order. That's called law and order, or what they refer to is the rule of law. And that's what people respect is the enacted law. What does the enacted law say? And so, how did you decide that you weren't going to follow the law? But we're a nation of laws. You cannot decide not to follow the law unless it is not supported by the Constitution. And you know that if it invades on your private rights. But that's an American of, or we the people of the United States of America, which is a constitutional republic, which allows it legitimacy to operate in a capacity as a nation state and to have integrity and credit and dignity on the world stage and a presence. It's not just the United States of America that had to conform to the international law, but it's all nations that want to have a seat at the table. First, we got to make sure you're a legitimate government. You're a legitimate, free national representative government of your people, meaning your people had to vote for you. The people, and they had to vote voluntarily, freely, free from any kind of government intervention, forcing. Like, no, you can't be at this table if you didn't win and stole an election and you didn't hold an election. And you're not legitimate, you're not a legitimate representative of your people there at that point. The people got to decide. And I love Donald Trump when he told them that at the United Nations during his first term, that no, the 21st century will be owned by the patriots, not the global elites. They're calling on the patriots of every country, but most importantly, the American patriots. Where's the patriots at? That was going to, because these are the ones who are going to defend the nation, their nation, the freedoms, the liberties, and justice for all, under the principles that's been around, the universal principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. These are and you see it. I love that. I said, that's right, Moore. He talked about the restoration of the sovereignty of the people, popular sovereignty, individual sovereignty, which simply is already exists. It already exists. That's the birthrights, right? And it's an inherited right. It's not a granted right. The Constitution can't grant you rights. You ordained the Constitution. We the people, we ordained and authorized the Constitution, the contract, and established the institution to represent in this representative state, to represent the will of the people, to serve at the will and pleasure of the people. It's property management 101. It's not the owner. The people are the owners. So we set up a trust uh, for our beneficial interests. We the people. Got to go back to the preamble. You know, why was this established? Why was it established in this form? Go back to the paperwork. Go back to it is written. Articles of Association, Articles of Confederation. Maybe we should pull some of this stuff up here today on the show. We need to talk about it. The treaty, the Moorish American Peace Treaty, the issuance of the American Constitution. For what do it means to issue? The issuance. The Constitution was issued to or for. There's an owner. There's a name before Constitution. It's the American Constitution. The American Constitution. And that's property of the American people. We the people. Establish this union. To this Constitution, what they say, to make a more perfect union. To bring our people, all people on the continent under the constitutional law of the land. Supremacy. Act 6. The Constitution is supreme law of the land. The treaties, the Constitution and treaties. All treaties made, all debts and treaties made prior to the Constitution in 1787, ratified in 1789. Yeah, this is a constitutional podcast. This is a constitutional podcast. That's what we're dealing with. It's a constitutional podcast. So, right? Hold on. I'm going to Facebook for a second to make sure we on there. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I can wait. We cooking. Let's continue to cook. But where was that? So it was like a constitutional podcast. So we're a constitutional podcast. This is important to us. Right? And so nationality, that's what I was saying. American Constitution. The American Constitution for the United States of America. Of America, meaning of belonging to America. And who America's a continent, North, South, Central Americas, Mexico, the adjoining islands, etc. It's the continent, right? So we're in North America. We're in this part of this continent, in North America. So there's an American Constitution. There's a Constitution for the United States. So it's set up a certain way because it must to legitimize your government. Well, you're not a legitimate government. Why should we be talking to you? Why should we respect your sovereignty? Why would she even acknowledge you don't have any sovereignty? Who are you? You do not have the will of the people. The people, your equals, have to raise you to sovereign power through a constitutional electoral process. You got to vote. Everybody got to exercise their 5 senses who was able to do so. Right? The general senses. Everybody got to get out and speak their mind, exercise their right to freedom of expression, exercise their right of movement, exercise their right to vote. Right? Or they got you and I, everybody, we got civic authority. What does that mean? You got a civic obligation that comes with that authority. What does that mean? You can run for office. You can form a political party. You can form a PAC. You can produce your representative, or you can become a representative of the people. And the people will grant you sovereign authority. That's your civic rights. That can't be taken. And it's inherited. It's an inherent right. Right? It's like, that's our conflict. And that, you see where I'm going. But I'm going to slow down before I go there. Because I'm focused on the Trump administration and No, I'm not. I'm focused on the constitutional administration. Because if we look at this ruling by the ninth, and that's a significant number, that's a spiritual number, the number nine. So the Ninth Circuit Court appeals. We got to look at that, where you get three judges, not one like you see in the district court. And it like this district court to me is a rogue system. It is like they're not subject. It seems appears that they ain't been subject to the law, which causes us to have to appeal things. But the other side appeal. So from their ideological capacity, they said, man, it's a violation of our customs here, with respect to the ideology supporting um, the sanctuary cities, it being a so-called sanctuary city. And I don't know if they're trying to use the First Amendment of religion to support their actions. I don't know. But what the court, officially responded was, no, your ideological capacities does not interrupt the constitutional obligation of the federal government to enforce the immigration laws. Meaning they coming to deport, and we're going to use this airport. I thought that was significant too. And because I never studied the World War II and all of the byproducts and contracts that came out of the World War II era. And they mentioned that. They said in the World War II, they had an agreement with uh, Kings County. I think that's interesting. That's something to be examined too. You talking about Constantine, like, well, who is the people that filed the petition for this particular entity to represent the people of that county? And why did y'all choose this particular name? And what does that mean to me? That can be almost like a war signal, saying that these group of people that come from out of this era, descended from this era, and still practicing these principles are in power. King County Executive Dow Constantine. Wait, what does that mean? Okay, but my point is, which prohibited operations that I'm trying to go to this. Here it is. It says the Trump administration challenges local orders. Trump administration filed a lawsuit arguing that the executive order violated the supremacy clause and a World War II era instrument, talking about a contract order, violated the supremacy clause, right? It's and a World War II era instrument of transfer agreement that grants the federal government use of King County International Airport. So we need to go back, the audience, myself, we need to go back and study the World War II efforts. The World War II and all of the byproduct global movements, national movements, contracts that was created, because I've been hearing about the World War II. It's the reason why a lot of these nations been able to tariff the U.S. products and companies as far as imports. But but we haven't levied one tariff against them, and it's been causing imbalancement within the nation, and they've been tearing us apart. In reality of it, it wasn't racism; it was agreements that came out of World War II. And I'm seeing as we keep moving around in different events that we continue to see stuff is like coming to the forefront. So you mean tell me that we've been getting taxed and we've been feeling it individually because of what we've done over in those countries during World War II and other wars, and now we've been sanctioned. We got to be in trouble for that. So that's like effectively a sanction. A tariff is a tax. You're taxing me. I ain't voted for no tax. And I ain't telling people go over there and kill nobody either. I ain't telling nobody have no wars. Right? But we are being held accountable. We, the people, are being held accountable for what the institutions have done. And the institution has been imposing an illegal tax on the people in response to the sanctions, to the tariff. That's a sanction. It's taxing me. That's a sanction, man. You're taxing me. And we can see that Here come another World War II era product. We said, well, what Trump said, well, wait a minute. These guys are intelligent. They said, well, wait a minute. We did the research. We found out that you can't supposed to be doing that. We got an agreement with you. And you violated the agreement and you called and they sued them for damages. So you and discrimination. Because you violated the agreement, then you violate the constitutional law, and you got caught discriminating against the contractors. So it's needless to say who we know this must be Democrats in power there, who's trying to shield their criminal conduct, or I don't want to be fancy with language, who is trying to shield their unconstitutional conduct, which is criminal. And I guess it's criminal or civil because they sued them. This is a civil suit, right? And they said, well, you can't do that. And they tried to go to the Ninth Circuit Court because the district court told them you can't do that. They tried to sue and go up to the appeals court. And the appeals court told them, no, you can't do that. So now that's law. That's enforcement there. No, you can't do that. You can't. You don't have the authority to do that. You can't do that. That's a non-citizen. Ain't got nothing to do with you. See, that's the issue. It's a non-citizen. It don't got. What are you talking about? It can't. It's non-citizen. It ain't got nothing to do with you. The federal government has a job to protect the country from invasion. It's non-citizen. They got an obligation to protect its citizens. What are you talking about? No, regardless, if they committed a crime, like people say that. What I mean by that, they say they work in our. They say that well, the illegal immigrants work in our society. We know. They say a lot of different things, and then you will hear the response from the Republicans, or you know what I'm saying, or let me just say the Republicans. They say, well, they break it. They broke the law. They say they're officially criminals, and it's like, huh? And it's a hard pill to swallow because you like, well, the children. Whoa, stop. The parents are criminals. Why? Because they violated the immigration laws, and then whoever's helping them, well, that's aiding and abetting a criminal, you know, a person committing a crime, whether they know it or not. The issue is that all of that's irrelevant under the Biden regime because it's an illegitimate government in the beginning because they didn't have the will of the people. And that's why they claim election fraud, which was, like you say, shut down out of all the courts. And like, well, how do you get justice? You don't. What you kind of find out is that if I didn't even look at it, if the courts didn't even look at it, how can we say, you know, he lost in court or the issue? It's like they didn't even look at it. They chose not to entertain it on no level, irregardless of affidavits, information, evidence coming out of every wazoo. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want to. If you pay attention, just pay attention to him. I love Trump. He went from saying they stole the election to this very day they stole the election. He went from that to this illegitimate government to the Biden administration. I said, oh no. Because once you say Biden Harris administration, you just brought form a legitimacy of the office of presidency under this illegal occupation of the president's of the executive branch. And I heard him. He said, "Man, I didn't want to disrespect or disgrace or bring any form of dishonor to the office of president because it's sacred to the real patriots. All of it's sacred. The Congress, the judicial branch is sacred to the American people. You got to realize, man, you know what? The Revolutionary War was real. All the wars, people really dying. People really from the idea of a nation, from the idea of having a free country, being a free people, right? And people didn't die. So you understand that's sacred. This is sacred to go vote for our grandparents, our great grandparents. They gave up their lives. They shedded blood. They spilled blood to have a to for the ideal of the right to vote, to be the ideal of freedom, the spirit of freedom, right? They died. They died. They died. They gave up the ultimate sacrifice, which was their life force. So it's sacred. That's honorable though. That's noble to be in this third and fourth generation removed. I mean, the third and fourth, be a part of the third and fourth generation, and fighting the good fight, right? Upholding freedom, liberty, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, should I say, and pushing forward, having some legitimacy in our existence, and so it's sacred. It's sacred to the patriots, Moorish patriots, Chinese patriots, um, Jewish patriots, Palestinian patriots, Russian patriots, um, Nigerian patriots, right? Like Korean patriots. I don't know if they call them patriots, but and the great matriarchs of the world, right? It's sacred to us. The Constitution is sacred. That's a you know that's having legacy and honor. And I seen Mike Tyson talk about legacy, and I overstand what he was talking about. He was relinquishing the ego. Hey man, all that stuff don't. We come here, we do our work, and then we continue on. He was giving her some game because it's propaganda. It's propaganda at best. From the ideology that it's a selfishness to it. No, my life contribution is for the next generations to examine. This is the work that we did. This is stuff that we got done. And here's what we was working with. Here's what I think that you pass this information down so they can know what to build upon, right? And you want to leave that will. You want to give these instructions, these divine instructions. You want to put that work in. You have to put that work in so they can see it clearly cut. What? Your footprints. Your footprints is clearly cut. So they can know which way that the masters went. I know which way my ancestors went. And see, that's what I'm saying. I seen Putin and was just talking, not to go too far off subject, but I seen the Russian president. He was so locked into. I just posted it. Let me see if I can go to it. He was so locked into the preservation of the different cultures that make up Russia or make up America, that make up this country, this nation, etc. And he was talking about that we all have a sacred duty to honor, to respect everybody's culture. We got a duty to that, right? People have been practicing their cultures for thousands and millions of years, and we're in this era where people just so un so not like they're not even conscious of the level of disdainment and disrespect that they are displaying for the sacred customs of the planet and practices of the planet that's been in operation for millions of years. And he's talked about, how Mother Russia don't stand for that. And I liked it that because that's a preservation of the divine laws of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That's a preservation of our way of life. And as great and powerful, mighty people, we have that sacred obligation to treat everyone with the utmost respect and dignity, and not be in the business of demoralization of our people. And that really is a byproduct of the denationalization of our people. And so we're gradually getting back to a sacred space where the collective consciousness is on pushing back into the constitutional fold of government. Why? Because that's legitimate. You actually have the will of the people, the collective consciousness that supports the improvement and the improvement of the quality of life for all. You can't do it without the will of the people. That's important. That's important. That's essential. That's a part of the foundation of the building block. To be a government, a true de jure government, not a corporate entity that's attacking and feeding off its own people and then put itself in a position to feed off the global community. No, that's not. It's no. That means that we've been invaded long ago, way before a Trump administration spoke on this. We already have been invaded. When we decided to invade other countries, we ourselves were invaded. That's the bottom line. We had to be invaded first to even have that notion. We have an abundance of resources. We don't need to feed off other people, other nations in this situation. We don't need to take advantage of people. We don't have to. We're in a position to really change the fabric of humanity forever. To set forth a blueprint that's just good for everybody to win. We got a chance to do something that we always had a chance to do. We've always been in this thing of leadership. And we have to turn back to that sacred place in the mind. It's the constitution of your mind. And so this going back to this ruling though, this is another situation, and we looking at that and say, well, it just makes sense, right? You got a job to do your job. The other branch got a job to do, and they appear to be doing their job in the Ninth Circuit Court. And now, what happens? The ground floor is this: any city, mayor, county, etc., leadership, and we've been seeing reports, tons of reports that intentionally violates the constitutional law. They're going to be sued. They're going to, in fact, they're not going to be sued. They're going to be arrested because there's a precedent that's established here. And whether you know it or not, you still would be subject to the law. So that gives the Trump administration a a super legitimate sword here to come into these communities, to take over these airports, and they already have agreements in place. So I think what they probably should have did here in this particular matter, if they wanted to maintain their superiority over the airports, then they probably should have addressed the transfer agreement that they went into with the federal government during the World War II era. They should have probably revoked their signature there first, so they could have had more support over the operational control and use of their airport. But they gave up their birthrights. Is what they did. They gave up the birthright to the federal government pursuant to a World War II era instrument of transfer agreement, belonging to a transfer agreement that grants the federal government use of King County International Airport. And what is a court supposed to say to that? The district court sided with the federal government, asserting that Constantine's action obstructed federal operations and therefore unconstitutional. So we got an agreement in place, we got a constitution in place. It's like everything else is somebody's been allowing this type of activity to go on, because we got both the district court and the appellate court to agree. Plus the Constitution is the ultimate agreement. And we got another agreement. So they got, it's crazy. Like, what's wrong with Kings County? It sounds like they doing something that they ain't got no business doing. And I love the Trump administration because, man, he got a good one. He got the courts, he got Congress, he got the Constitution. And it's probably the first time in modern day contemporary history that the star system has been in this such of alignment. We're seeing order. This is all about order in operation. This is about the law. America, excuse me, the United States of America is returning back to the Constitution. It's dissolving the corporation, the U.S. democracy that they created and covertly subverted the seats of government in a non-constitutional form under the guise of the 14th Amendment, and they've been usurping the people's inherited rights, pretending that the Constitution granted them birthrights when the birthright existed before the Constitution existed. And it's the bottom line. So let's take a break on this. Okay, we've been at that for over an hour, or at least 30 minutes. So good job, or I won't say good job. I won't say good. No, I actually do. Good job to the courts for. And this is I listen. I'm not into attacking anybody, but we have. They say not, but however, we just gotta get out of this mind frame of victimization. Okay, we gotta get into getting our house in order. Um, I think that's the bottom line. We can't help people if you're unable to help yourself, and we can't do sharp break and perhaps a puzzle with the American century framework. Okay, I don't want to talk about that. So again, go to RAVANA underscore L. And you can see where we just constantly on this thing at right here on X. Let's see, it's deep and scary. Have you seen Occupied by Stu Peters? I seen that. I did see that. But okay, shouts out. I will take a time out to say shouts out to the Detroit Pistons. Not so you know I don't watch football. Detroit Lions. We see y'all doing y'all thing. Continue to push. Um, Great job. And was New York Times is a woke mongering propaganda. Oh, we were just talking about the media thing. Um, we were talking about the marketing thing, but we here. So you got Jeff Bezos. What is Jeff Bezos talking about? Let me see here. He was just talking about he was optimistic. Um, he was just talking about. I seen this too. I actually watched it, sat on it for a minute, and he was just talking about he's locked in.
We're going to see. I'm very hopeful about this. Uh, he, if we're talking about Trump, I think it's very interesting. I'm actually very optimistic this time around that we're going to see. I'm very hopeful about this. He seems to have a lot of energy around reducing regulation. And my point of view, if I can help him do that, I'm going to help him, because we do have too much regulation in this country. This country is so set up to grow. By the way, all of our problems, all of our economic problems, like if you look at the deficit and the debt, the national debt, and how gigantic it is as a portion of GDP, these are real problems and they're real long-term problems. And the way you get out of them is by outgrowing them. You're going to solve the problem of the national debt by making it a smaller percentage of GDP, not by shrinking the national debt, but by growing the GDP. You have to grow the denominator. And that means you have to grow GDP at 3, 4, 5% a year, and let the national debt grow slower than that. If you can do that, this is a very manageable problem. So we need a growth orientation in this country. This is the most important thing, a growth mindset. And we are the luckiest country in the world. We have all these natural resources, including energy independence. We have the best.
So it's like, in short, it's like saying, we got to outgrow something. It's like we got to grow up and mature. We got to get past this point. We gotta outgrow this, right? These problems that our economy is facing, and like he said, I agree. We're set up to win, but we're so oversaturated with regulations. Like in the administrative state is they love it because they make money, right? They making gazillions of dollars from regulations because you need administrators to basically administrate the regulations, enforce the law. Got these little mini executives and administrators, and they reeking in buku money, and from the bureaucratic state, the perpetuality of it through this oversaturated regulation market, and they just regulating the death out of our economy, out of our ability. So if you got president, a presidency that is focused on deregulations and is focused on doing it through like an institution that we would a program like DOGE, the Department of Government Governmental Efficiency. So you do it through a vehicle like that, and you look at it from a financial capacity. We look in the budget, get it better. Hold on, we got to straighten this out. We got to look at the audit, the U.S. government, federal government, audit everything. Why do we have that? What do we need that for? What was the purpose of it? So we either eliminate it or dissolve it, and or uh, we repurpose it. And then we take the funds, we reallocate, we can reappropriate the funds to other significant components of the body. Um, and then all of a sudden you start to uh, put yourself in. That's what you're talking about. Put yourself in a position to win. Where you can actually see a surplus. We can start to address all of this stuff. Like we don't have to be in this capacity, but yet we got. It's like it's a self-inflicted wound, is what he's actually saying. And like we're doing this to ourselves. Who are these people that is creating these, enacting these unconstitutional? It's not even laws at this point. It's like policies, corporate like policies which really empowers the administrators, the directors, the stakeholders, but it weakens the American people and our infrastructure, and that's what it's been doing. We have a bunch of parasites that exist from regulation. We gotta get rid of the parasites. We gotta do a parasite detox. And we gotta identify what types of parasites we actually got, which they're referring to as the deep state, because it's one big cabal, and it's everybody's getting kickbacks or donations, and it's disguise of donations or buying some art. You got all of a sudden you got this art gallery, or you got this global initiative. Stop it. Okay, it's money laundering 101. And this is just their way of talking nice about it, you know, instead of just coming out saying, man, this is money laundering. We seen a report, you know, that we've seen multiple reports. They can't pass, Pentagon can't pass an audit. They have 4 or 5 different audits. They can't account for trillions of dollars. We got trillions of dollars going to programs that don't even exist. like, like what are we talking about? The kind of money, taxpayers' dollars that's being wasted into thin air, but making some administrator, see, that's what I'm saying. But the administrators are getting paid though to administrate a program that don't exist. That's the bureaucratic state. That's the deep state. That's the people that's causing all kind of upheaval to maintain the $1 trillion profit industry of money laundering. That's the reality of what we're talking about. Nobody just won't say it out loud. And it's thick. It's thick. It's thick. We talking about the kind of wealth that can eliminate homelessness in the United States, can eliminate hunger in the United States, can eliminate people that ain't got no vehicles in the United States, can eliminate poor failing schools in the United States. We're talking about there's no need for poverty. It's an illusion. It's a figment of our imagination. It exists because we have allowed an invasion into the political infrastructure. And they didn't set up shop and have divided themselves up. And now they're everywhere. And that's what we've been looking at, is that the administrative state has been ruling the Americas undetected through this regulation, this regulatory system that's in place. You got millions and millions and millions of regulations for nothing other to cause confusion. It's an attack on common sense and common practice and common law and constitutional law. And then it kidnapped the United States, the federal government, including the states, counties, and the cities. And so that's why Trump was able to parade around and had campaigned on, man, I gave you the greatest tax cuts, the greatest regulatory cuts in history, in the United States history, in its history. I did that. And only because of the poor educational systems throughout the United States, public systems throughout the United States, people really, a large amount of America don't have an understanding on what may seem as complex issues, and it's not complex. The reality of it is it's been made to appear complex through the what's the word I want to use here? Through all of this regulations, all this red tape. That's why that's how they wanted to make it complex. You're like, well, wait a minute, this is not making any sense. Why is it, you know, there's some money in this, there's a grant, but the regulations, the criteria, right, for an American to get access, oh my God, it's the nightmare of a situation. And it's like, why did they do that? But the guy Joe Blue that came from a country I never heard of was able to come over here and get a grant for his business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What is that? What is that? What I like to say, and I feel like, I won't say I feel, I want to put my feelings in this. But the reality of it is what I come to discover from research is that the United States has really been given like a death sentence for its crimes against humanity, to be honest. Because if you think about it, it's like, well, why is the water poison? To force you to buy bottled water. Well, who owns the bottled water companies? Who owns the company that produces the bottles? The company that produces the tops? The company that produces the label? The companies that produces the equipment that produces all of the things that I just identified? Whereas who produces the components for the computers that run the machines that produce the water bottles? What was the company that went out and got the rare earth elements for the computer chips that's controlling the machines that produces the, you know what I'm saying? Who produces the tires and the equipment that produces the tires and all of the stuff in between for the tires that used for the transport the bottled water to the, you get what I'm saying? Like, you start looking at the situation here, start to break it down into a very simple form that you can apprehend. You say, wait a minute. Well, what's the first action? They got to poison the water. Other than that, why would you buy bottled water? Rather than, you ain't buying bottled water, there's no point of all that stuff I just said to even take place. Because there ain't no money there. There's no money there. There's no revenues there. Why? I got the cleanest, purest. I'm a Michigander. I got access to the cleanest, purest water in the world. You understand me? For the Great Lakes. Why am I buying bottled water? So, you know, why am I buying bottled waters? Because you've been regulated. Somebody got a regulation that said we got to put fluoride in the water. We got to use this company, this type of material. Come to find out the material is an unknown, this real talk. It's an unknown material, and the material produces lead and other potential harm, toxins in the water from the faucet water. Clearly, I'm not drinking, cooking, cleaning with the water that comes out of the faucet, right? Well, under regulations, we had to use this company produces this type, and this type was used, but really in reality, this type was a poison. Well, what's the point of using fluoride? Well, under the regulation, the guidelines, the fluoride is an agent that supposedly supposed to clean the water, but it's a poison. Yeah, it's scientifically proven to be a poison. And this is the impact and effect on the body. But because of this regulation on the water, these guidelines and all this stuff, we got to use this amount. But yeah, my pineal, my brain messed up. I gotta go to the doctor. Yeah, we know. Then that's regulated. So this industry of regulations, is regulating the death sentence on American people. So I look at it from a whole different, deep concept, if you want to say, because fluoride's a poison is in the water. Why is it in the water? Who suggested that? Who passed that as a legislation, or who? What? How did this? What's going on here? And the ability to come out 15 years later, 20 years later, and say, "Dang, it was poison," because that's what they're doing now. In the course, they say, "Yeah, fluoride's a poison." Well, wait a minute. I said that 15. My son was in Head Start. That was like 10, 11, 12 years, 13 years ago, man. 14 some years ago. It was a long time ago. Now it's a thing. Like it's a legal issue. Huh? You ain't know it was a poison then? Yeah, they knew it was a poison then. But it was regulations in place. And they said, well, what are you talking about, Prince? Well, I read an article that says Pfizer and them knew that their vaccine was fatal. So they had information prior to making the decision, and they still made a decision to go public with it, to push that out here to the people for a price too, because they got paid to do it, the tune of trillions of dollars. The government's paid these people so they got to pay the tune of trillions of dollars to administrate a vaccine through through the regulations. So an attack on regulations is actually freeing the American people up from the death sentence levied on the American people, because we the people didn't agree to anything that resulted in an illegal invasion of another sovereign entity, another sovereign people. I didn't sign off on that. That's frivolous. So, let's just get in the open with that. You know what I'm saying? The United States received a death sentence. And there's administrators of that sentence. And I didn't want to, because they took your money and they came in and took the money in 1913. You know what I'm saying? 1929, where they set the play up in 1913, executed in 1929, 33, etc. Now here we are. You don't have access to real money, and now they didn't push it on the world, and a lot of the world is seeing. You seen what China just did. China's took a shot at us the other day ago, put sanctions on us. A lot of the weapons and stuff that we sell, we're gonna be unable to make products to use that component to produce the, the the weaponry that's been sent over to Ukraine and sent over to Israel. The weapons that's being used in Gaza and Lebanon and all these other places. So you gotta take a look at that. You know what I'm saying? And also you gotta take a look at, uh, let me go over to that. You gotta take a look at like the impact. So those parts are not going to the United States. Those factories that produces those weapons can't produce the weapons. That's gonna cause layoffs, massive layoffs and stuff like that. On top of these same weapons we're selling that's made from critical components and elements provided by China that's now being sanctioned. We can't sell security. We can't give security packets to these countries. So we got to take a look at this stuff about regulations, and I like it. I love it. I mean, what do I mean by I like it? I love it. I'm talking about the Trump administration. I'm agreeing with this guy. One of the wealthiest men on the planet. I'm agreeing with him. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, yeah, he's right. He on point. I'm just looking at it in a deeper sense and just speaking to that deeper sense. It's like, wait a minute. If you really think about the bureaucratic state, this administrative state, the so-called deep state, and the impact and effect of regulations and the saturated market of all these billions of thousands of, I think they were just talking about how many words is in the IRS codes. And they was comparing it to other countries. Like, man, what the heck what are we doing? What are we doing? It ain't even we. It's like, who is doing that at this point? Who done that? Who done it? Who's doing it? Who keeping it going? Let's fire everybody. Let's fire everybody. You understand me? You are fired. I'm coming in with my own team, a whole new team. Everybody is fired. FBI director Ray, you're fired. CIA director, you're fired. DOJ director or secretary, you're fired. You're fired. Um, Homeland Security, you're fired. The deputy director, you're fired. Anybody that was appointed, fired. Everybody's fired. Thank you for your services. You're done. Immigration, ICE, you're fired. Um, Everybody fired, man. Everybody is fired. Pentagon generals fired. Secretary of Defense fired. The whole new cabinet, all the way down to like people that get paid paychecks. You're fired. Like people that was hired and not appointed. You're fired. The job is officially open. These people are fired, especially if you in a leadership position. That's really the issue. All of the leadership position, fired. Anybody that's been complicit in supporting unconstitutional activities, you're fired. Like it's one thing to have, freedom of expression, do your thing, say what you want to say, do what you want to do. But if you operating inside of that bubble or the federal government that's subject to that constitution in the most strictest of the sense, and you aiding, you're fired. Again, there's a reason why these laws, the Constitution is in place. And if you really want to get like what I think is a better insight on why such a significant contract, trust, significant contract slash trust. I hate to say slash because it's contract too, but it's one of the most important trusts set up in the world. It's because, and I don't want to say because, I want you to look at the Declaration of Independence. So if you go and look at the what was proclaimed and published, right, to the public, what was proclaimed, Declaration of Independence, and you go into that history, you say, okay, like what they refer to as the founding fathers or the framers, right? We're gonna let's go with USA. Let's um, if you look at the rationale, the reasoning based in the Declaration of Independence, you're like, oh, it was thick, right? So all these atrocities, all these crimes against humanity, you know what I'm saying, was on the floor, was coming to a screeching halt. And they had to, based on the Declaration of Independence, they were saying, well, this is the reason why we left, why we pledged our allegiance to America, to the American flag, to the United States of America, right? And to the republic for which it stands. They was talking about, nah, man, these brothers, Great Britain wasn't right. King George III no one right. They were squeezing us. It was doing this taxation, illegal taxing, no justice, no peace, right? Um, and obviously that's what created the war. So when you go into Declaration of Independence, you see, and you can go back, you can go into the Articles of Association, go to the article, because these are the documents of development, right? The birth records. This is like, oh, this agreement led to this formation, developed this union. Here are the peoples that were involved. Here are the contracting parties. And you go into their descent, go into their families, and go into what they were into, and go into what your ancestors were into to make up this, what you refer to as the United States of America, constitutional republic. And you go into that, and you say, oh, this is why the Constitution is so important, because it's a document that represents the freedoms, the perpetual free state of the people, and they legacies, their inheritance, all of the stuff that make up them is intact in full, without interference of the so-called government. It's subservient to the will of the people. It's not to attack their culture, their religion, their ideology. That's been passed down to them for millenniums. You know, and so this regulatory state has had an adverse effect on the nation, and so therefore, it must come to an end. It must be reformed, right? We got to mean we got to do this over. All of it, the whole entire system, because it's set up for you to win, but it's being used against the interest of the American people, which is the problem in the first place. So instead of it being and operating on the positive side of things, it's been being and operating on the negative side of things. Um, and it's a self-sabotaging state. And so what we have to do, and what we've done that is in operation, is to cleanse, detox the body. That's it. Got to detox the body. We got to get some nutrients in, and then we got to release the toxin waste from out of our body, and just not consume poison. And that means, we got to create peace. We got to break away from these wars. We got to settle wars without the use of military intervention, diplomacy, and we got to get our economy in order. We got to reform the Federal Reserve. We got to bring the issuance of our wealth back to the American people's hands. We can't continue to put people in office that, got some, extreme isms about themselves, and want to construct and conform to pseudo ideologies. That's the reason why we're in this place in the first place. That's the reason why you got so many spinoffs. You got all these little spinoffs, right? No, it's the United States of America. Key term here is unity, one. And that Constitution created one jurisdiction that supports many jurisdictions. It's just when you go into violating somebody else's sovereignty from an unjust capacity, the law shall take its course. And that's what we're seeing. This these regulatory environment, saturated environment, is an attack on the inherent rights of mankind, of humanity. Right? We got birthrights. You can't create and develop an administrative, regulatory form, regulatory state to suppress, subvert my inherent rights. You can't do that. And that's what they have successfully done with the use, with the foundation of the 14th Amendment. Bottom line, and they've been able to do that with the 14th Amendment, 14th and 15th Amendment, because it gives the appearance that the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, then granted a right to 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 the American people, to human beings. The United States is a corporation. It's not. All governments are corporations. Let's get this understanding. And the corporation, they don't exist in parity with the human being. You know what I mean? We ordained it, the Constitution, the lifeline of the federal institutions. You understand? So it's not a situation where, it's some kind of, equality between me and a fiction. it's, it's a car. You know what I'm saying? You got to look at the owners of the car. That's who you suing, right? You're suing the owners of the car. I sue the city of Pontiac. The people pays the tax, right? It's come out the people's money. The people's a real thing. So the 14th Amendment gives gives the appearance that all persons born naturalized. Whoa, 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 whoa! These terms are significant in use, in operation. 15th Amendment, where it grants me a right to vote regardless of race, color, creed, etc., etc. Oh, stop, stop, stop. I had a God-given right to vote. I got a God-given civic right, right? I got a God-given uh, right to American citizenship. I'm born in America. That's a birthright. That's an American birthright. That's not granted by the Constitution. That's granted by the great God of the universe. So I don't need, you know, uh, a group of legislatures to come together with their under the control of their pseudo ideologies. Because understand the mentality in 1868 when they put together the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment. Look at the timeline. So look at the timeline. You say, well, wait a minute. So you got to understand the administrative state, the regulatory state that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and President Trump and Vivek Ramsey is in reference to, right? And they, wait a minute, we're gonna set up Doyle's Department of Government Waste. Jeff Bezos, like, man, I love that idea. I'm gonna take him at his word. I'm gonna take him at face value because he believes that, based on his professional experience, that the United States has a chance, is already set up to win. But we got to get rid of the regulatory state. We got to get rid of the saturated market of regulations and the bureaucratic state that exists from all these regulations. They're eating the United States alive. And they're the reason why the infrastructure is not as strong as it's supposed to be. Our immunity is supposed to be at a top level. We have a lot top level immunity. We're getting sick from everything. We've been invaded everywhere through regulations that's actually set up to kill Americans. If I'm just being as blunt as I want to be, it creating a massive mental health issues in America, massive obesity rate, massive this, massive that, massive this, massive that. But yet we got a quadrillion regulations. We got all these billions and billions of regulations, but but it's having the adverse effect on the American people and the economy and all of the innovation that we have. All of this innovation and power, unleash the power of America. unleash the power of our economy, unleash the power of our collective innovation. Let us free. Let the American people free. You understand? So it's like, what are we doing? Let the American people be free. Unleash our true power. Right? No, they gonna regulate you. You know, it's called the spellbound. You know, they just spellbound America, right? One of the way they did it, like, we're gonna pump in fentanyl to the country because that's imported. Fentanyl is imported into the country. That's basically what the Trump administration has successfully communicated to the American people and the world, that fentanyl is imported, and this is where it's imported from. And I demand you leaders of that particular nation to shut it down. Like, well, how is Trump going to stop? How is the Trump administration is going to? What's the plan to stop the invasion of fentanyl coming across the border? Well, they allegedly identified exactly where it's coming from. It's imported into the country, and this is the nation, and these may be the nations, and they said it's coming off the Asian continent, particularly China. And Trump has claimed he's going to put an extra 110% tariffs on China, 10% extra for was it the 10% for, I think it was the people coming across the border, and I think it was another 100% tariffs for the fentanyl, something of that nature. Oh, it was 10% for the bricks, and then another 100% for the fentanyl. And he's saying, well, the fentanyl is coming from China. It's being imported from China. It's made in China, produced by China, and it's being imported into the country. And the diplomats of China promised this administration, they would put the death penalty in order to deter the fentanyl invasion of our border that's being imported from China. So it's like, okay, right? I think that's intelligent. I mean, don't take this the wrong way. It's not an attack on China. What I'm saying is this. So we took our time to identify exactly where the pain points are at on the body and exactly what's causing the pain points to exist. I mean, we didn't got it down to logistically, where it's coming from, how much coming in to formulate a plan about how to stop it. So it's not something that we naturally produce. It's something that's being imported into the country from this region of the earth. Okay, I'm going to talk to the leader of that area or that region, and I'm going to hold them accountable. What kind of relationship do we have? Yeah, we got a great economic relationship. You know, they're either, you know, we're competing economies. We produce, we import. It's one of our biggest trade partners. And you mean tell? Okay, so wait a minute, wait. Here's what I need you to do. We got to be partners in this. I'm here to make my country great again. One of the ways we're gonna do it, we're gonna get these drugs, this flow of drugs, this epidemic of fentanyl out of our country. And I want it done on a historic level. I don't want my first year, my first 100 days, you know, first 4 years, we got this low percentage of fentanyl flow stopped into the country. No, I want 99.9% to 100% stop before I get in office. This the type of benchmarks I'm setting. I'm setting this level of benchmark. Okay. Oh, well, we got regulations, the DEA, we're gonna regulate this and we're gonna do this and we're gonna ATF. We ain't doing none of that. I'm gonna call over to China. That's the first priority. Activation of diplomacy. I'm giving a call. The president is the #1 diplomat in the world, bro. Sis, cousins, family, friends, etc. I got y'all. Hold on. Okay. So the president is like the number one diplomat in the world. Okay, I got ATF, DIA, I mean DEA, CIA, FBI, right? I got the DIA, or what's that? The NIA, what's the National Intel Agency? They got all of that. He also got a phone, and he got the president of this nation and that nation phone number. He can call any president, prime minister in the world, and a phone call can end a war, can stop a conflict, can end a tariff attack campaign against the United States. You seen that? We was wrapped into we signed agreements that allow countries to tax us and tariff us uh, via post World War II and other little war stuff like that. But it all come to an end. So I say, you know, I can appreciate the Trump administration or any administration, presidency, Congress, even if Congress was up this way, the leadership and the men and women that make up Senate, that make up uh, um, the House of Reps, like even there, if they were set up in this type of responsible form. But the issue is again, you got a parasitic system in place, right? So you think that's the government. You're like, man, that's our. It's like, no, man, that's the corporation pretending to be the representative government. But you look at, you know, the Trump administration. That was just so brilliant. It's like it's brilliant all day long because it's like, and that's what Jeff Bezos was saying. He's saying, look, I'm in on that. I agree with that. We set up to win. We set up in a way where we can outgrow all of our economic issues. When we're talking about returning wealth and freedom of our economy, the power, unleashing the American, the our economic power, leveraging that. But we regulate it to death, right? Literally to death. We regulate it all the way down. Nah, we're gonna determine how many billionaires or millionaires through these we're gonna and and so Bezos is saying, look, I'm all in. But listen, I like it because he's in the entrepreneurial space. We like people like saying the experts in the industry. What do you see? You know, we gotta unlock American innovation. We gotta do it through getting rid of dissolving the bureaucratic state. And they've been able to exist under the guise of, we gotta like they're doing their job. But they've been no audit. Like we've been refusing to do the audit. Like, now we're doing an audit, and it's going to happen through, or may not, I don't know, right? But it's already happening. Why? Because the information is public. So it's not like people is not sitting here FOIA these people. I just seen a story on Fannie Willis being ordered to produce all communications between her office and the White House, emails, uh, text messages, all communications, and all of his forms dating back. They got it going all the way back to a particular time to the present. And it was from some third party organization conducting an investigation on her office, which what does that mean? It means that all of the communications is owned by the public. That's our stuff. Let me see it. Let me get that. And I think her office went into denying, etc., them access, and they sued her. and I think she went into default. And when she went into default, the lawyers pressed it in court, and the court ruled in their favor, ordering, i.e., or I guess the end results would be they ordered her to submit all communications by this such time. You are not to destroy this, that, and the other, etc. And I'm seeing this tool uh, being used not just the FOIA, but but more so the tool of a notice, right? Like a legal notice. I'm seeing these lawyers put that work in, okay, basically. And long story short, Fannie Willis gotta drop the bag of all the information. Basically, got to give them up. And so I'm agreeing with, ultimately at the end of the day, I agree with the Trump administration, and they've been winning actually. Actually, the principles has been winning. Not see we people through the magic of TV and all the drama, all the dramatic magic. It's you gotta look at what are the principles. You know what I'm saying? What are the principles, man? What's the principles he or she is representing, right? And it's like through the colorblind magic, we like just that, but it didn't work. You know, over 74, 75, almost 80 million people said, "Nah, I ain't gonna fall for the color magic again." Right? So, what principles are we talking about? He said, "Well, we want to end government waste." Well, what do you mean by end government waste? Well, what are they wasting? U.S. tax dollars. Well, who's being taxed? U.S. citizens. Well, what are the taxes? You know, you start breaking down federal tax. You start breaking down the local tax systems, the federal tax systems. Um, and you're like, oh yeah, so we finance the institutions through this taxation system, I guess. And now that's being exposed. It's like, wait a minute, well, the government was founded off terror. They were using terror systems and etc. I don't want to go that route just yet, but the Trump administration and its principles, its economic principles, you guys may not be great at going to war, so then we don't want to even go to war. We want to get out of war. We want to leverage what we're great at, and that's understanding the strategies when it comes to using our position um, on the global stage when it comes to our economy and the power of our economy. And so we can use that to create peace versus, the war stuff. It's like, nah, we can make more money in this way and save more lives. Nobody have to die. You know what I mean? I send our sons and daughters to die for a better America. That's not true. We can actually do things in this kind of component, right? And we can build ourselves. Not saying that we a punk and we're scared of anybody. That's why they say peace through strength. We're going to get out your country, but we're going to get out on our terms. And it ain't going to be perceived that you like punking us out the country. And I'm not saying I'm with that. I'm just saying they believe in not what you do, but how you do it. That's what I think the principle that's being exhibited was like, well, look, we need to get the hell up out of there. This costing us lives and money. And we ain't even got to be there. We was there on a false pretense. So why are we still there? The question is, how do we leave? Is it going to be perceived like we lost, cowards? Are we going to be looking like we did something wrong, or do we leave through strength? Hey, look, man, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to get up out your country. You better not kill none of my people. We'll be up out of there in 29, 30 days. Better not no soldier get killed. We withdrawn our troops. And if one American soldier get touched, I'm not going to war with your country. I'm going to war with you. And he sent my man the picture of where he lived at. And he said, Mr. President, why are you sending me this? Because I'm going to hit you. We're going to knock your boots off. Yeah, they go, peace through strength. So, hey, those are not is word for word, right? But I'm just putting in my own analogy and breakdown of the content of what he provided in these real life situations, these actual personal experiences or presidential experiences while operating as the president. I had to make a phone call to stop the conflict. So I didn't have to send a diplomat over there. No, I could call the president. I can call the head of the Taliban. I can call the head of whatever organization on the planet Earth. I'm the president of the United States. What are you talking about? I need his number. Give me his number. Get him on the phone. The head of whatever organization, the gangs, anybody. I can call the head of the gang. As the president of the United States, man, I allegedly got one of the well, I ain't gonna say allegedly. I got one of the largest armies, militaries in the world. So we ain't gotta have like we ain't gotta debate that. Right? We spend the most money on our defense in the world. You don't gotta debate that. Okay. Then we got the, one and two, one of the biggest. So we're one and two in all like the certain particular areas that's super important. Right? It's super important. Money and beefing, we're great at, allegedly. Because we print money unlimitedly, currency, substitute money relentlessly. We got printing presses. Uh, and then like we use the military and other strategies and relationships. We leverage it to ensure that everybody else got our currency. That's an important feature. So when they start cutting our currency off, understand that's a significant cutoff. It's not something that you just ignore. President Trump didn't ignore it, right? He's like, oh yeah, anybody else going to do that, we're going to put 100% tariffs on you and da 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 da. Okay, so the Trump administration is having actual wins in certain. They just won in the Ninth Circuit Court about the immigration. So when they say they're going to lock up a mayor or lock up somebody that's playing games, we're going to charge you. And they're serious about that. They have federal jurisdiction, constitutional jurisdiction to do so. And obviously, they got judges, constitutional judges in place that's willing to rule, allegedly, that's willing to rule from the written text of the Constitution and not from their philosophies. Because you got philosophical, what they refer to as community activists on the bench. But the Constitution don't say anything about community activists. And it's not an attack on community activists. But this is a revelation of obligations, constitutional obligations, which are sacred because it makes up the legitimacy of what it was what's the requirements of being a nation state, a government, a sovereign government recognized around the world. And so, it's sacred to patriots, certain patriots, not certain patriots, but patriots, and not just American patriots. Chinese patriots. People actually love their country. People actually love their nation. And we know love is the highest frequency. So this is why they're patriots, because they're willing to lay down their lives. They're willing to, and people have already. This is not something that we speculate about. People actually have died and are dying with the idea that they're doing it for the life of the nation. That's sacred. That's sacred ground. And so you got a Supreme Court that's in place that's saying, hey, we're governed from the text of the Constitution. And the Constitution is sacred ground. So in the Constitution, the immigration laws, the 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 executive branches has an obligation to uphold and defend. And and in doing that, it can't be regulated, bogged down by these unconstitutional regulations, not just there in that particular venue, but all other venues as it relates to the federal government's obligations in law and constitutional law. So I think Jeff Bezos is on point. I agree with him in that analogy. I'm all in too when it comes to disbanding the bureaucratic state, dissolving all of these regulations, ending government waste. Because at the end of the day, the average American, we the people, take on the financial burden. We take on the stress of the nation. We're the ones that's, used as fuel to finance the federal government while it's sitting up here wasting $516 billion on 1,000, I think it was 1,600 programs that no longer exist. So the administrators are collecting dollars for a program that they're not administrating. That sounds like they're doing that in the local communities as well. Showing up for a program, nobody's here, but they took the grant. How did you take the grant and I show up to the program that you're supposed to be administrating and no one's here? Or the program shut down in 2 weeks? Or the program is insignificant. Why are we, I've seen a report from the federal government studying, a gay hamster or some stuff. It was wild. It was wild. I'm like, wow. Like, whoa. And it's crazy because somebody tried to, and actually I seen some examples last night of, but they were scorching Fauci in Congress. Oh man, they were showing some of the inhumane experiments they were doing, and like they were like, "What was the purpose? What was the purpose of that?" And so
risk capital.
And it was crazy. Wow. And I'm like, so you mean to tell me they got $516 billion that is going to, was it 1,200 program? Bottom line is the programs no longer existed. So you got $500 billion going to who? Going to who? Let's call it money laundering one-on-one. And they continue to expose the federal government and the continued waste for eons. For eons. We sit in hundreds of, somebody got to shut off the printing press. Like somebody got to cut the water off. It's like, dog, you want all of our generations to be enslaved to this system. Nah, man. So these regulations is bogging us down, tearing us up, locking up our true power. And somebody else is making a profit, right? And so I support Bezos. I support in his analogy of the incoming administration. I'm agreeing with that 100%. I'm not saying I'm just gonna take it on face value, but I think I'll look at the fact that they got a resume of already producing this type of system. But of course, we had all of this stagnated energy to slow down progress. And we gotta, American people gotta get in the game for real. They gotta get in the game. They gotta actually look at this stuff, take some time out to learn about
system in the world by far. So, people get confused about why does the United States have so much venture success, so much entrepreneurial success? Why are the big tech companies here and not somewhere else? What's really going on with all this dynamism in this country compared to what we see around elsewhere in the world? And there are a bunch of reasons for that, but the biggest one, 8 of 10 points there, is that we have better risk capital. So it's not the banking system. We have a good banking system, but so does Europe.
Right.
What's different here is that you can raise, $50 million of seed capital to do something that only has a 10% chance of working. That's crazy. But the people who are giving you that seed capital know that their expected value is still positive in many cases, or they're at least gambling that that's true. That risk capital system that we have in this country is turning out to be very hard for other countries to duplicate. So we have that. We have, we speak English, and English is turning into the lingua franca of the whole world. It's there's so many advantages here, but we are burdened by excessive permitting and regulation. You can't build a bridge and all these things. You know what they are. We see these examples all the time. We need to be able to build solar fields and everything else.
So you're optimistic
I'm super optimistic
about this president. And the reason I ask is because
I'm very optimistic that President Trump is serious about this regulatory agenda,
right.
and I think he has a good chance of succeeding.
What about the idea that he thinks that the press is the enemy?
Well, I think I'm going to try to talk him out of that idea. I don't think the press is the enemy. And I don't think, he's also, you've probably grown in the last 8 years. He has too. Like this is not the case. The press is not the enemy.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too.
Have you talked?
So let's go persuade him of this. No, let's do it now, but you and I should go. Let's go talk to him.
If we could try.
I really don't. I think that this is absolutely, I don't think he's going to see it the same way. But maybe I'll be wrong.
Was that always your thought, by the way?
What I've seen so far is that he is calmer than he was the first time and more confident, more settled.
Let me ask one related question, then I want to actually get into space, but it actually is an interesting segue to space because we were talking earlier this morning to Sam Altman about Elon Musk and Elon Musk's relationship with the president, interestingly. And there's been a lot of questions about whether there could be the possibility that Elon, given his proximity, would make things difficult for people who are his competitors. Elon, in the space context, is your biggest competitor.
Yes.
Does this concern you?
Well, they're certainly very able competitors. I mean, this is an arena where I have the...
Oh, no. I know he's a great competitor. No, I'm saying, does it concern you, his proximity?
No, I was headed there. Oh. But I'm just saying they're certainly very good competitors, and no doubt about that. I take at face value what has been said, which is that he is not going to use his political power to advantage his own companies or to disadvantage his competitors. I take that at face value. I could be wrong about that, but I think it could be true. I think he probably is trying to, I think this Department of Government Efficiency and that he and Vivek are helping Trump with and so on. Again, I've had a lot of success in life not being cynical. And I've very rarely been taken advantage of as a result. It's happened a couple of times, but not very often. And I think that cynicism, why be cynical about that? Let's go into it hoping that the statements that have been made are correct, that this is going to be done, above board in the public interest. And if that turns out to be naive, well, then we'll see. But I actually think it's going to be great. I'm hoping.
I'm glad you could address it. It's something I think we all want to know. One, by the way, before I even get to space, Washington Post question, just because there's a lot of media people here.
It may be about 1% if you don't count the security personnel that are covering these buildings. That is absurd. And it's not something the American people will stand for. And so one of the first things that I think you'll see is a demand from the new administration and from all of us in Congress that federal workers return to their desks and get back to the work that they're supposed to be doing. I think that is common sense. What you're going to see here, the overriding theme here, is a return to common sense and a return to accountability and efficiency in government. I think that's going to serve the people well. There was a report that came out today. I don't know if you all have seen it, but someone did a little survey of how many federal employees are actually working in the office. By one estimate, it may be about 1% if you don't count the security personnel that are covering these buildings. That is absurd. and it's not something the American people would stand for. And so one of the first things that I think you'll see is a demand from the new administration and from all of us in Congress that federal workers return to their desks and get back to the work that they're supposed to be doing. I think that is common sense. What you're going to see here, the overriding theme here, is a return to common sense. And